fan base that can digest that material. A lot of times I run into these guys that they're like, oh yeah, man, we made an album and we're going to put it out on, on Spotify and iTunes. And I'm like, but why? Like, why would you make the body of work of an album and put it out there if there's no audience to digest it yet? You need to build an audience first. You need to build a reason for an album to exist. And once that fan base exists, then you can give them that content, But like, and that's a big struggle that I see with a lot of these people is they're still in the frame of mind that like an album is important. An album is important when it's important. But right now what's important is building a fan base off of a single and a video that connects with an audience. And if that single and video doesn't connect, make another one, right? And make another one. But don't make an entire body of work and then realize that didn't connect. Just take it song at a time until you find a connection with an audience and then start to feed that audience,
That's interesting because that was basically how the industry was built. It was built on singles.
Yep.
Albums didn't start happening until Elvis had a compilation of golden hits and stuff like that, and then the Beatles, and then concept album started happening. But that's really that's really interesting that you're going back to the way things were done. In a modern way, I mean, do you use like pledge music and Kickstarter? Is that a part of your strategy also?
I've used pledge music for a pre-order campaign of a band that was already successful. So we just used their platform just to run a pre-order for an album, right? So that was simple. But once again, I think this is that thing that you see where an outsider, like someone just observing from the outside, looks at a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo or whatever, and they're like, wow, that band just raised $100,000 or whatever. I can do it if I just put it up there. It's like, well, no, the band that raised $100,000 is because they had a fan base to market to. You're not just going to, by default, put up a campaign on one of these, fundraiser platforms and raise that money just because it exists on the platform and the platform is built to raise money. That's not how it works. The platform makes it an easy destination for your fans to go to. But if you don't have fans, then it's pointless to try and raise funds.
Absolutely. Have you been able to apply any of that to like your established artists, like let's say Zakk Wylde?
Well, yeah. I mean, whenever we started his guitar company, for instance, it's like, yeah, he's Zakk Wylde, but we're starting a guitar company. Like, we're starting from ground zero, And so we had to build it, one guitar at a time. We had to introduce it. And, there was a lot of flack, and there is not so much anymore, but there was a lot of flack of like, why aren't you still with Gibson? I don't understand. Like, it's like, what? Because Gibson is Gibson. Gibson's in the Gibson business. Gibson isn't in the Zakk Wylde business. I'm Zakk Wylde. Zakk Wylde's in the Zakk Wylde business. Yeah. That's why we started Wild Audio, Yeah. And but we had to certainly. It's like, look, man. Like when you're a manager and your artist says we should build a guitar company, you go, yes, that would be great. and then you go like, okay, cool, man. I'll call you later. And then you hang up and you go, how the fuck do I start a guitar company? But you got to figure it out because that's what your artist wants, And if you don't figure it out, you're not going to be working with that guy much longer.
Are the guitars built domestically or overseas?
They're built overseas. Yeah. The basic simplified version is what I did is I partnered with a manufacturer and distributor, and it works out great. It's a real good win-win for everybody in that they get a little piece of the action. And we get a tremendous piece of the action. I mean, you got to figure, a profit margin on a guitar versus a little 8% royalty that you're getting from a major guitar company is significantly different. Yeah. As long as you have the vehicle of being a known guitar player. Like this system isn't going to work for everybody. It's not going to, just because I play guitar doesn't mean I'm going to be able to sell guitars if I start my own guitar company. Yeah. It's not how that works. It's like, Zakk's a fortunate dude, but my point is that he was known for making t-shirts and playing live and putting out records. That's what he was known for. And so to start a guitar company from scratch was daunting, but we figured it out, and it's rolling now. And, we sell guitars, and, it's in Guitar Center and everywhere else, AMS and Musician's Friend and Sam Ash, and, we're crushing it. But it took years to get to that point, and we had to figure it out because it's like, no one's really done it. And there's like in that there was no YouTube tutorial of how do I start a guitar company. There was no PDF template that I could download off of the internet of how to start a guitar company. We had to figure it out, trial and error, and it's a lot of work. I mean, it's like it's wood and electronics. It's got to be right, and he's meticulous. It's like down to the size of the fret wire. It has to be right because he's putting his name on it, and he's not going to put his name on something that isn't what is real. Like his guitars, he plays on stage. It isn't like, here's the entry-level version. No, there's the version. It's the version that he plays, is what we sell. There's not like a cheaper model or anything like that. It's for real.
I've had signature models before, and what I find that the process is a bit slower now because dealing overseas takes much longer than dealing with a domestic manufacturer. So it's there's a lot of, and sometimes because of the language barrier, there's some miscommunication and things like that.
You got to get in front of it. Whenever you go like, oh, it's a 60-day lead time. Mm-hmm. You got to know in advance. Like, well, then we better figure out what we're going to do for Christmas, and we better order it now to have it in time.
Absolutely. I'm going through that right now. Yeah. We finalized the new model that I designed with the company. The podcast is called The Dash because, lately you and we've been attending some services of musicians, friends of ours that have passed on. And, we sit there and we listen to the eulogies. And I'm sitting there, I'm going like, wow, wouldn't that be nice to actually have the individual here present in the room to hear all the wonderful things that everybody has to say? So my podcast is basically talk to friends of mine so I can let them know how much, how I feel about them.
That's cool.
And I have to tell you, I am so grateful that you're keeping, you hold the key to the Ozzy, to the gate that is the Ozzy legacy, and you do it better than anybody that I could ever imagine do it. And I just want to thank you for that.
Yeah, man.
I really do.
Oh, hey, man, thanks for, laying the groundwork. I mean, I use you as a reference. I go back and I go, look how cool they were. Look at the castle. Look at all that and stuff. So it's like you guys laid the groundwork that now we have to keep in check, right? Because our job is still, as your job was, to make sure that the guy's name on the ticket looks cool.
Oh, yeah.
And that that's your job. And you guys, that was the template that you guys put in place. It's funny, like, it's so crazy that we live like, almost next door to each other.
We do.
But it's like, so I was doing, I guess Decibel Magazine is doing a cover feature on Ozzy and, his farewell. And so I was doing my interview with them. And they're like, yo, do you know anyone else? I go, well, I manage Zakk. You should probably, talk to Zakk. Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. And I go, I'm neighbors with Rudy Sarzo. Like, you should probably talk to him too. That'd be really cool. And they're like, what? And I go, yeah, he lives like, just like right next door basically or whatever. And I go, and it's funny because I always tell the story of like, on one block, we have two Ozzy Osbourne bass players, right? And you were already here. And then when I moved in, thinking of the neighbors going like, oh my God, there goes the neighborhood. Like one block with two Ozzy Osbourne. This is just going to be nonstop party central. And of course it's not.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
But you just must think what these people around here must have thought.
I know. But, this year I figured out, hey, this guy plays with Ozzy. We're never going to see him because he's going to be on the road all the time.
No doubt. No doubt.
Absolutely. And then Robert Trujillo, he lives right up the street also.
Yeah.
So we have
it's crazy.
Yeah, it is. How does it feel to be on tour with Ozzy during his final phase of touring? How does it feel?
Yeah, it's interesting that like it's crazy to be at a time whenever something that so much molded my life, right? Like getting Kiss Destroyer whenever I was a kid, getting Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, getting Back in Black. Like, this is my fabric. Like, this genre is my DNA. You know, it's why I do what I do. You know, I mean, it was like, there was no question that whenever I graduated high school that I was doing anything other than rocking. Like, I was motivated to do nothing else, you know, and I didn't set up my life with a backup plan to do anything else. Yeah. Like, this is just what's going to happen, or I'm going to die trying.
Yeah,
you know?
Same with me, absolutely.
You know,
yeah.
And it wasn't so much that I needed to be some big, rich, crazy rock star, but it was like this is the only thing I'm interested in. This is the only thing I'm passionate about. Like, it's just all that I want to do, and in terms of money, I'll just figure it out and I'll just make the best of it, you know. But it's all I wanted to do. So it's interesting to be on a farewell tour, but also be in close proximity to Slayer's farewell tour, to you know, AC/DC kind of feels like they're near retirement. You know, like Lemmy passing away, so the end of Motorhead, right? So not only am I part of a farewell situation, I'm sort of in this circumference of just seeing the end of what got me here in the first place, you know? And it's sad. I mean, it's a range of emotions, right? It's sad. Like, of course, I'm super stoked that I'm even able to be a part of the Ozzy Osbourne band, let alone the farewell, right? To be part of the chapter that closes. Like, you were the chapter that opened the book, and I'm part of the chapter that's closing the book. Like, the fact that I'm even in that conversation, considering that I remember being at my friend's house and holding Blizzard of Oz for the first time, looking at that album and just like looking at the album, just how intense the album cover was, and just like how the band looked and just everything. And then, you know, early 80s, not understanding that these were actual people, because they just felt like monsters or superheroes, or, you know, you guys didn't feel like humans to me in 1981, 82, you know? And like, I didn't even play an instrument then, you know, like I wasn't even in that frame of mind yet. I was still, because I don't even think that I understood that you guys played instruments. You know, it was just music. It was just this thing, but it was just like so like dark and mysterious, and you know, and you know, now I've peeled back the curtain and I see the Wizard of Oz, you know, and stuff, and so now I know. But like then, you know, it's like I said, it's the reason that I'm here. So it's like such a range of emotions now to be experiencing it and seeing it all around me, and like I'm super excited and super happy to be a part of it, but yet super sad that, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel is getting closer, you know. It's scary.
Well, usually there's another light. There's something else beyond that. How did the bass pick you?
Well, it was practicality, really, in that I wanted to play drums first. So I because, you know, I'm a kid, right? And kids beat on stuff, and so I just wanted to beat on stuff. And then, you know, in hindsight, like, I first wanted to be Peter Criss, because he was the cat guy, and I like cats, and I still do, and that's weird how that all comes full circle. But I wanted to be, and because I think it's weird, right? Because I think anyone that knows me would think initially I would just be drawn towards Gene Simmons, which came later, you know. But like, I was initially drawn to the cat guy, and I wanted to be the drummer, and I just felt like something to do. So I took drum lessons, and my parents eventually bought me a drum kit. But we lived in, like, you know, like a townhouse or a condo or like track housing where we had adjoining walls, you know, and so playing a drum kit was just impractical because there was no volume knob on it, and you had neighbors, and it just wasn't practical. So I was like, you know, and then I looked around too, and I had buddies that were drummers, and I had buddies that were guitar players. So I had this sort of like logical, like, light bulb go off of like, well, if I played bass, first of all, there's a volume knob. Second of all, I could jam with my buddies because there's no other bass players, you know. So so that's what I did. We went to the music store. We traded in my gold sparkle 7-piece Pearl drum kit.